Hey, it's Abdullah and this is the Nokia XR20, one of the most interesting devices to come from Nokia Mobile over the last couple of years. It's a modern smartphone that feels a bit old school in some ways, and it's all the better for it. Remember when you used to accidentally drop your phone without seeing your life flash before your eyes as you desperately make a last-ditch effort in order to save it? And luckily for you, the XR20 is kind of like that. It was designed specifically to survive drops of up to 1.8 meters. It also has the military standard A10H against damage, alongside IP68 water and dust resistance, and can even resist extreme temperatures. All of these protections naturally reflect on the design, which is like nothing you've seen recently. The XR20 is built like a tank, and it feels very substantial in the hand. It uses a combination of an aluminum frame and a polymer back cover in order to resist damage, and the latter won't even lose its color even if it's scratched. Its edges extend ever so slightly above the display to protect the most vulnerable part, the glass. And not that they didn't even try to make the glass tough, as they've used Gorilla Glass Victus. But glass is glass, and luckily in some markets where this device is sold, you'll be able to get a free screen replacement for the first year, if you manage to shatter it. And even the cameras are protected thanks to this extended ring all around the camera bump. And yet, despite all of this, the phone still somehow manages to look good, in a quirky way. The design team definitely deserves a lot of credit for this, and just have a look at all the rugged smartphones for a comparison. The hardware also has two cool additions: a reprogrammable emergency key at the top of the device and a lanyard hole at the bottom. Both really useful, unlike the Google Assistant button on the left-hand side, which is nicely designed but sadly can't be reprogrammed. If you wish this button was reprogrammable, like this video to let them know. My only complaint about the hardware is the power button, which has the fingerprint scanner integrated into it. It sits flush with the rest of the device and doesn't feel very clicky. And even though the fingerprint scanner works reliably well, it can sometimes be a bit too twitchy. So occasionally when you're trying to press the power off button to switch off the display, the fingerprint will activate immediately after, which turns the display right back on. As for the haptic engine, it's superb on the XR20, which makes typing a very nice experience. And the device even includes an SD slot if you want to expand the memory, and even a 3.5mm headphone jack. So all the essentials are here. All in all, the device definitely feels very high quality. Now as for ruggedness, I've dropped the XR20 about 10 times in front of friends and family to just demonstrate how tough it is. Those have managed to leave a couple of scuff marks here and there, but the phone still works flawlessly. I even took it with me to a football game in which I was playing and recording some cool footage, and even took it with me swimming, and it survived no problem. If you live an active lifestyle, you'll absolutely love this. As for me, ordering McDonald's while taking a shower is an experience that I will cherish forever. Make no mistakes though, the XR20 is a big phone, and it weighs about 248 grams, making it the heaviest device I've tested this year. You do get used to the size and the heft quickly, but if you're looking for a compact, slim device, this is definitely not it. As for the display, you get a run-of-the-mill 6.67-inch 1080p IPS LCD panel. Even the refresh rate is still at 60 Hz, which means that scrolling won't feel as smooth as most other devices you'll find these days. For an LCD display, it's perfectly adequate, with good viewing angles, nice saturated colors, and even deep blacks. So you won't have any complaints watching content on this phone. It also has one neat trick, which is the fact that it actually works with gloves or with wet hands. Outdoors, it can go up to 500 nits, which makes it perfectly usable under direct sunlight, although the contrast levels do suffer a bit. For multimedia consumption, you'll be pleased to know that the XR20 has a dual speaker setup, which can get ridiculously loud. Naturally, at max volume, the quality does suffer a bit, but even at 80%, it's still louder than most other devices out there while keeping a decent audio output. This can be a deadly tool in the hands of people who watch WhatsApp videos in public. so please spare us the pain. As for the software, the XR20 is running on stock Android 11 as a part of the Android One program. Nokia is promising 3 years of OS updates and 4 years of security updates. So if you plan on keeping this device for a long period of time, you should be good. Stock Android is pretty lightweight, and with the Snapdragon 480 coupled with 6 gigs of RAM on my unit, the performance feels snappy and generally smooth. For most people and for most daily tasks, you won't have any complaints. But the performance isn't flawless, and compared to a more mainstream device, you'll definitely be lacking in firepower. Now this difference will be noticeable if you're playing a very heavy game like Genshin Impact on high graphical settings, or the extra second or two it takes to process the images captured with the camera. But not to say you can't play games on this, as both Call of Duty Mobile and PUBG ran quite well even on high graphical settings. So you can't really blame the phone for losing, maybe you just need to get good. Now what the XR20 lacks in high-end performance, it makes up for with its battery life. 4630 mAh might not sound like much, but coupled with a lightweight stock Android experience and a power-efficient processor means that this phone is almost impossible to kill in a single day. At the end of most nights, I have about 50% of my battery capacity left after about 4 to 5 hours of screen on time. And even on days where I'm really abusing the phone, I still end up with about 30% battery capacity left. So up to 10 hours of screen on time or approximately 2 days of battery usage is a realistic target on this phone. All in all, it's one of my favorite aspects of this phone, and it definitely makes it stand out amongst mainstream devices that usually favor high-end performance over power efficiency. As for charging, you're sadly limited to only up to 18 watts of charging speed, and in most markets you won't even get a charging brick in the box. This means that a full charge will take just over 2 hours, at a rate of 12% charge every 10 minutes, until about the 80% mark. Something I really like though is that the phone supports 15 watts of wireless charging, a feature I wasn't expecting, but I'm really glad it's there. The XR20 has a dual camera setup on the back, so you have a main 48 megapixel shooter and a 13 megapixel ultra-wide camera, both with Zeiss optics. And I know that 2 cameras sounds too little these days, but there's no filler cameras on the back of this phone just to increase the camera count. And to be honest, I wasn't really expecting much out of both of these cameras, but I was actually pleasantly surprised. The main shooter is capable of capturing very nice images in good light, with good levels of dynamic range and decent levels of details too. Now the resolved details might not be class leading in any way, but I think you'll still be satisfied with what you can get out of the main camera. In good light, the ultra-wide camera is decent too, but it lacks sharpness, which is a common issue amongst ultra-wide cameras on mid-range smartphones. Now the big surprise was in low light, as the main camera is actually capable of capturing very nice looking images if you're using night mode. Assuming of course you're not capturing images in total darkness. It almost always managed to exceed my expectations, even in tough shots. Having said that, even if the image appears nice and bright on your phone screen, if you start pixel peeping, you'll definitely notice the lack of resolved details. And the camera also suffers from very notable lens flare. I also wasn't very happy with the white balance, which I felt was a bit too twitchy, and prefers to go warm even when I don't want it to, especially in low light. Despite these weaknesses, night mode on the XR20 is by far the most impressive implementation of this tech on a recent Nokia phone. It's working with a very average camera sensor here, and I can only imagine how much more impressive it will be if it was working with a fancy sensor. As for the 8 megapixel selfie camera, it's doing the absolute minimum, so don't really expect much. Now a very unique aspect of the XR20 is that it carries 3 LED flashes on the back, a dual LED unit and a single unit. You can also fully control how many of them you want to turn on for a very bright, and I mean blindingly bright, torch experience. It's a very helpful feature, especially if you're going outdoors at night. As for video recording, you're sadly limited to only up to 1080p at 60 frames per second, so you can't really capture 4K with this phone. Quality of the video is average, but the stabilization is decent. And you also get plenty of features to make full use of the camera. So you have cinema mode if you want to capture 21:9 aspect ratio video with manual controls and the ability to capture H-log format. There is action cam for super steady footage, and speed warp, which is like hyperlapse, but you can control when the video slows down or speeds up. For the audio, the phone utilizes 2 microphones in order to capture better audio details and minimize wind noise, what Nokia Mobile calls Ozo audio, and it works decently well. Now for call quality, I didn't really have any issues with the XR20. The loudspeaker is pretty loud, and the voice on both ends sounds loud and clear. But the most impressive aspect was the signal reception. This might be one of the best devices I've ever used in this regard. And even when I'm using the lift in my building, which blocks the signal reception on all of my other phones, this phone somehow manages to take perfect phone calls. So let's conclude. The Nokia XR20 is the most mainstream rugged device you can find right now, thanks to a fairly tame design and feature-packed hardware. It's also one of the most Nokia devices, if that makes sense. However, it's still a rugged device, which means that most of the value that you'll find here is from the aspects that make this phone practically indestructible. And as a result, most mainstream devices will beat the XR20 in terms of high-end performance, and with probably more advanced display tech. And naturally, they'll also have a slimmer waistline too. But once you understand this trade-off, you'll be able to make up your mind on whether this phone is suitable for you or not. For me, as a fan of the brand, this is one of the coolest devices they've come up with recently. And I'm glad it exists. It's been a while since we've had a phone that is a conversation starter, and this one definitely is. And here's hoping we get more ambitious devices like this one. So buy this phone if you want a practical, feature-packed, rugged, durable device that still looks good with a suit, has excellent battery life, and will probably serve you well for the next 2 to 3 years. Don't buy this if you're a heavy gamer, performance is your #1 priority, you don't care about the ruggedness, and you capture a lot of selfies. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more of the XR20, check out my unboxing and impressions video, or you can check out the latest tablet from the brand, the lovable T20. That's it from me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to like this video to support me and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying my content. And I shall see you in the next one.